2 weeks ago or so, we spoke about the different structures, investment structures, and different strategies to invest in different investment vehicles. The question is, however, if you structure your property portfolio in a specific way, say through a trust and companies or whatever the case might be, if you don't buy in your personal capacity and you do all these creative structuring things, how does that affect your ability to obtain finance? Because a lot of investors are obviously relying on bank finance to buy their portfolios. But how does your structuring affect your ability to obtain finance?
So interesting enough, going back to, again, like evictions in the economy, and maybe then taking a step back and going property as an asset in the economy, right? So I had a conversation the other day with guys from business partners, with guys from Tough, with private investors, venture capitalists, companies, and I'm always having conversations around the financing space, right? Now, do we have money? Is there, do we have enough money to be able to buy property? Do we have enough money to invest? And you know what? We do. We actually have quite a lot of money. Everyone I speak to now says there's people putting money. It's either from outside the country, inside the country. But it's people looking for returns on investments. And again, this is where I link it back to the first question, which is, why would you invest in an industry that's so difficult? Call it over-regulated if you look at a systemic issue as an example. It's not really over-regulated, it's just difficult. Or you look at it just an economic issue going, well, we can't get people out. It's too contentious because it's a human rights issue, so we're not going to invest in it. And you see this type of behavior when it comes to financial institutions as well. And it's unfortunate because the money's there. It's secured by an asset that you pretty much almost guaranteed to be able to get your money back. If you value that asset correctly, you're going to get your money back when you sell it. But why is it so difficult for them to get their money back? Because when they go on auction, it's a nightmare to go on auction, and then there's unlawful occupiers again. It goes back down to evictions. Everything ties in. So the structuring side of things, asking about structuring, and the reality is, as a business, if you're functioning as a business, be it a property holding company, private individual property holding company, whatever the case is, if you're investing in property as an asset class, the structuring becomes crucial, because now remember, you're running it as a business. So you want to apply to the banks, you want to be able to convince the banks that you're running a viable business with balance sheets, income statements, that sort of thing. So after a couple of years of actually running a company that draws income from properties and that you can show you're a profitable company, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to need to sign anymore as a surety. Maybe they won't even check your affordability anymore. You can go sit and retire, because remember, after you hit a certain age, the banks stop wanting to give you money in your individual capacity, because now your repayment terms start becoming very small, obviously because of your life expectancy. If you can do it in a corporate vehicle that actually has longevity that could pass on to somebody else, you've got a far better chance of actually acquiring financing, because you've just proved that you're able to run a profitable business, and technically you created a asset of value. Now, so that's one thing to consider, is if you're planning on growing, you're planning on having something big, do it properly. Second piece of advice, also remember that in personal names, your affordability gets impacted very quickly. National Credit Act, the fact that they can't give lending, reckless lending, so they do an assessment, and if you've got too many loans in your name, they're not going to give you loans. Do it in a structure, for example, you can actually avoid the NCA, which is a choice you're making, of giving the banks a bit more opportunity to give you loans. And also remember, they're not giving you a loan, they're giving the company a loan, meaning that the affordability knock doesn't go against your name. Even if you're signing a surety, it goes against the company name, right? Because you're using another vehicle. So that's also another little a trick for this sort of trade. Then the last thing that's worth mentioning is also remember there's different types of financiers. So different rules apply for every financier. Some financiers, like Tough, for example, would never give you a loan if you didn't have a company to begin with. That's just common sense. Business partners typically would also look for you to be running a functional business. They wouldn't just give a loan to a person in their personal capacity. And sometimes they look at balance sheets. So if you have everything shoved in your personal name, now it's a question of, oh, but please take that as security or mortgage that, or it starts becoming difficult because now it's messy. So if you're going to run a business, get your structures right from the beginning, and your ability to get funding, which is out there, becomes a hell of a lot easier, as opposed to you struggling applying your personal name for 2 bonds and getting capped because now you've got way too much credit.
That's clever. It's actually amazing, the different structures and the pros and cons on financing and everything. It's a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.